so many podcasts. I just had to build a studio next to my living room.
It's a good excuse, right?
Yes.
I love it. Well, thank you for joining us today, and for everyone who's watching. We're happy to have you on. To start off, I'll make it super easy with some quick and simple questions for you, and then we'll dive in a little deeper if that works.
Yeah, perfect.
So just so for everyone watching, can you just give a little bit of a background on who you are, what Ringba does, and the position you hold?
Sure. My name's Adam Young, and I've been in the performance marketing industry since I was a teenager in my parents' basement. I spent a great deal of time running traffic and doing arbitrage and essentially running every campaign you can imagine. And then my business partner, Harrison, and I were running a fairly sizable business, and Google changed the rules around their feeds. So the click feeds, if you're familiar. And overnight, we had this very large business that went to nothing. And this happened to us so many times in my career that we dubbed it the affiliate curse. And we decided we wanted to build technology that could allow affiliates and businesses to build sustainable businesses so that they didn't have to suffer the way that we did. And that was the genesis of Ringba. And so I am the co-founder and CEO of Ringba. And we provide call tracking services and call trading services to sellers of calls, brokers of calls, buyers of calls, and companies that need to optimize their ad spend for anything that happens over the phone.
Okay, and so you kind of already gave the rundown of where Ringba started from, but what introduced you specifically to the paper call world?
Well, the thing I love about a phone call is that you can actually dive into the recording and understand what happened with the consumer interaction. And so there's not really a lot of games people can play because you can literally listen to what happened over the phone. And also, the biggest companies in the world are actually the largest buyers of phone calls. We're talking about Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies that invest hundreds of millions of dollars into their call center infrastructure. And so those type of campaigns are not going anywhere. And so the beautiful thing about pay per call and why I loved it so much when we discovered it is you always know where you stand and what's happening because you can listen to what happened on the phone. When you build a campaign, it doesn't go anywhere because, like Terminex isn't going anywhere. United Healthcare isn't going anywhere. Like these giant companies aren't going anywhere, and people need the products and services that are sold over the phone. And so it's a really exciting ongoing opportunity for anyone in the value chain, whether they buy calls or sell calls. And also, what is super exciting about it is, unlike most affiliate campaigns where there's a limited amount of scale, in pay-per-call, there's billions and billions of dollars a year in activity. And so the opportunities are essentially endless.
Well, and you made a point that it's not going anywhere. Specifically, I think that holds with human touch and like that human contact that we all kind of lose when it comes to different parts of the industry. And I think that you're very much on point about that people aren't going to stop calling for healthcare or Terminex. There's certain things that are easier when you talk to a person than when you just pick up the phone and either send an email and hope to get a response. It's really something that's not going to go away. So I love that that's like your reasoning behind it for sure.
And I think when something's important to someone, they want to talk to a human. I know, like, I just recently bought a car. I haven't owned one in a long time, actually. And I had to buy insurance for the first time in years. And I tried an online form. I tried the live chat. All these people are telling me that, no one wants to pick up the phone and call. And I was able to pick up the phone and in 2 minutes answer all my questions, solve the problem, and bought a policy, and I was done. And so I actually spent much more time fussing about with forms and live chats and trying to just do it the quote unquote easy way. And then in the end, I picked up the phone, called, and a really sharp guy who knew all the ins and outs of what I was looking for was able to get me what I needed in literally a couple minutes. And so I think that humans actually want to talk to other humans when it's important to them and they have real questions. And then also things like insurance are licensed by the government. And so health insurance agents and auto insurance agents and P&C, your home insurance, these things are all regulated. And so not you can't do all the things in a form that you need to. And that's why insurance agents are licensed and not going anywhere.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think we've all run into, whether it's specifics like insurance or buying a car, but we've run into that instance where you're trying to deal with anything to do with your money is important to you.
Mhm.
And if you go through a return, I know I did this recently with a product I had bought and trying to go through the return process online. It was bot after bot after
Yeah.
automated response. And I finally picked up the phone and called them, and it was done within 2 seconds. Whereas all the automatic ones were telling me it would be like 24 to 48 hours before someone got back to me, which frustrates us as humans because we're now also used to the quick response.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about the AI bots is people come up to me all the time and they say, people aren't going to call anymore. It's all going to be AI bots. But we've all interacted with one of those. And if you ask a question that's outside of the scope of what they can do, or a complicated question, or an outlier, something that happened to you or you need an answer on that's not normal, these bots are not effective. And it's going to be really complicated to make them effective for all the different questions and all the different outliers. And then when it comes to health, the last thing you want is an AI bot telling you that you should do something. We've all seen how ChatGPT, for instance, has ghosts, right? It makes up lawsuits and it makes up studies and it makes up things and then gives people advice. In fact, there was a judge who just reprimanded a lawyer for citing a case that didn't exist because ChatGPT told him it did. And so I think that in the end, AI will be useful, but humans aren't going anywhere. And as we deal with more bots and something's important to us, I know I'm going to want to talk to a real human. I think that's going to be important to me. And I'm going to want the bot to tell me it's a bot. And then I'm going to ask it to send me to a human. And that's another reason why I really like pay per call, because I actually think call volume is going to grow, not shrink. And people regularly say to me, like, calls are silly. Like, no one wants to pick up the phone. And the data we see is quite the opposite. We see more call volume, more consumers comparison shopping over the phone. With the new FCC regulations coming into place, we're going to see a ton more inbound phone calls as opposed to outbound. No consumer wants to get bombarded with 25 people hammering their cell phone on outbound. And so I think that the future of marketing for important, expensive things is inbound phone calls. And so I think we're at the very beginning of this wave, and we're going to see it grow just to astronomical numbers.
And do you think that's mainly because people are going to get sick of not being able to get a hold of a human? Or do you think it's just holding on to that original feeling that we all have of wanting to speak to a human?
I think it's emotional, but also when it comes to sales, people need guidance. They want a counselor to help them pick what to purchase. Like, I've bought health insurance before, and I don't even know what to say about all of the options they give me and how it applies and what the details are. And there's like hundreds of pages of information about what you can and cannot do with the policies. I mean, I run a software company that makes highly complex predictive technology, and I'm an engineer, and I can't figure out a health insurance policy. So, like, how's my mom going to do that without someone helping her? And so I think it's going to stay a necessity.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, yeah, how many years now have we had to pick our health insurance, and it's more difficult every single time. So I'm completely, I'll always join those calls that, your company says, join if the healthcare benefit person is going to talk us through. If you want to join. I will always be the person joining that because it just goes over your head unless you have that person walking you through it. Do you think when it comes to Ringba's perspective, when you were going into 2024 and looking ahead into 2025, what were your like key initiatives with these new things coming out and on a rise?
So for us, recruiting has been one of our biggest initiatives. We've doubled the headcount of the company over the last 16 months. I think
Wow,
we have about 75 team members right now, and we're interviewing for, I don't know, as many brilliant engineers as we can find. Like, I'll take as many as I can get. And what we've seen a rise of is our real-time bidding technology. So the ability to look at the consumer's demographic information based on their caller ID and bid on it before receiving the phone call. And so to rewind a little bit here, years ago, the model was you would say to me, "Hey, Adam, I want to buy 100 calls a day." And I would say, "Great, I'll send you 100 calls a day at 20 bucks a piece." We shake hands and I send you the calls. Now, if you don't have agents available to take those calls, or you don't actually want them, or you get too many at once, they don't get answered and I lose money. Or maybe you're working with another one of me and they send too many calls at once, and then so mine go unanswered, or whatever the case is. There was a ton of waste in the old model, and you couldn't actually understand if those consumers qualified for your products and services. So you're going to be taking phone calls from people that may not even be able to buy what you're selling. And so our real-time bidding technology allows buyers to look at how many agents they have available in real time, what the consumer's demographics are, if they qualify for their products and services before bidding on the phone call. And so this has been a radical technological shift. We've seen exponential growth in the amount of activity of this kind, and we think it's going to continue. So I know for our audience, it may not be as applicable like what our roadmap looked like and what was important to us heading into 2024, but it was optimizing our technology to handle scale around real-time bidding for calls. It's a really challenging problem. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of bids a minute, and really optimizing that technology so all of our customers can make the most money humanly possible, but also so that the consumers have the best experience possible. Because it's really, really a poor experience if you call a number and no one answers as a consumer. So this technology makes it so a much higher percentage of calls gets answered. And so the consumers actually benefit from it. And when a company can understand if a consumer even qualifies for their products before they take the call, then if the consumer calls, they're not upset that they spent 10 minutes trying to figure out that they don't even qualify for the insurance policies that the person's talking about. So,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a win-win on both sides. You got the consumer having the better experience, but also the seller being able to know, like, this is actually not a waste of my 10 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour, when you could have been helping someone that is better qualified if that's the case. I think that's a fantastic perspective. And, when you look at it from a marketer's perspective, what do you think it is that a marketer needs to have in place before launching a pay-per-call campaign to make sure that they're well equipped?
That's a great question. And this is going to sound like a really self-serving answer. But if you don't have the technology in place as an affiliate to sell your calls properly, you're going to lose. So the technology is so advanced at this point that if you were to go and try and run calls and you weren't using Ringba, for instance, you won't win. You won't be able to optimize your ad spend well enough or compete with everybody else. You'll lose money. And so a lot of the technology we build for call sellers at this point automates the entire process. For instance, our predictive routing technology will look at all the call buyers in real time and understand which one has the highest chance of converting a consumer so that they get paid. And so if you're trying to do that manually at this point, like, you're competing against a cluster of computers that'll fill a semi-trailer. Like, it's just not possible to compete against it. And so that's a really important piece of the puzzle. And then also, I think for affiliates that are getting into pay-per-call, they all tend to look at what everyone else is doing. And when I was an affiliate, I would look at what everyone else is doing and run the other direction, because it's low margin, high competition, not a good entry point.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm an affiliate, I'm asking myself, what do I already know about? My dad, does he own a mortgage company? Like, does my uncle tow people's cars for a living? Like, oh, I worked in a call center at a home services company that sold gutters, right? What do you fundamentally understand that would give you an edge if you want to go market to a consumer? I think that's one of the most important choices that an affiliate makes when they start in the space.
Yeah, it's almost like instead of going in blind and just trying to follow the crowd, it's like, what are you going to stand out in? What's something that you're passionate about and actually have the knowledge behind to run with? And I feel like along those lines, when it comes to marketers, affiliates, when you're looking at the pay-per-call industry right now, would you say that there's a lot of big missed opportunities?
Oh,
What would the like top 2 or 3 be for you if you're looking at like, okay, in my mind, when I'm looking at it, these are the big opportunities and they're getting passed by right and left?
there's so many. I think one of the crazy things about the space is how many opportunities there actually are. There's this well-known media buyer who's a customer of ours, and he sent me a message the other day asking me about how to optimize yard signs across large geographic areas. And we came up with a strategy on how to recruit hundreds of people and pay them to put yard signs on busy street corners, and then like how many phone numbers need to be printed in what order to optimize the whole thing. And I think that'll be a 7-figure campaign annually for them, maybe 8. And I think that's the interesting thing about pay-per-call is affiliates have to get out of their comfort zone and realize that you can make money in the space anywhere. It doesn't have to be Google, Facebook, the traditional media sources. Some of our biggest customers do television ads. During open enrollment on every news network in the country at 7 p.m., like those phone numbers, I know exactly where they're going. And it's crazy the amount of volume that happens outside of digital and different areas of digital. You can do OTT and streaming and podcasts and you name it. And so testing in areas where other people aren't is where the highest margins are. And so I think that's one of the biggest opportunities. And then also, most people look for the big buyers because it's easy, right? Like, give me a nationwide buyer that's going to pay me a strong price and take calls from anywhere. But the reality is a 15-person, I don't know, a 15 location landscaping company in the Northeast might be willing to pay 5 times as much for a qualified phone call as a big nationwide buyer. And so one of the other missed opportunities is the business development of actually going and pounding the pavement and finding companies that want calls that don't traditionally know where to buy them, and then coaching them and helping them build out that program. And I think a great example of this is a good friend and customer of mine, Matt. He's the CEO of Future Dontics, which is 1-800-DENTIST. And he acquired 1-800-DENTIST. It was like failing. And then they just work their butts off getting more dentists into the fold and optimizing what they're doing. They use our real-time bidding. And now they service thousands and thousands of dentists across the country. And those dentists buy calls directly from them. So all the middlemen are cut out. The independent dentist in Poughkeepsie is going to pay a lot more for a phone call than a big nationwide company. And so any affiliate can do this. It's not hard. You literally just knock on a door and say, hey, can I send you some phone calls for free? Like, I'll send you 10 calls. I have too many people who want to buy your products and services. Can I send you some for free? And they're never going to say no. And you can hear the call recording. And so you just listen to it and you call them back, say, hey, guys, looks like you signed up 4 out of 10 people for whatever services you're selling. What's that worth to you? And how many more do you want? And it's a really simple conversation. And I think most affiliates miss the boat because they just don't understand how to do that side of the business development.
No, that makes complete sense. I mean, because originally when you just think affiliates and affiliate marketing, pay per call, you think online media, LinkedIn, social media. I mean, I'm guilty of it. That's the first place my mind goes to. And as soon as you said like the lawn signs, a light bulb went off in my head. Yeah, that's it. You could do the same thing, and people aren't taking advantage of spaces like that because they're following the trends of the online media buying. So I think that's a fantastic piece of advice for anyone out there trying to get started. And, you know, a lawn service or a blue collar industry is a good opportunity to work with someone instead of the multi-million-dollar companies for sure. That's incredible to think about it in a different way like that. And I know that's one vertical that you're discussing, but looking in the industry and specific verticals at all, do you think there's 1 to 2 specific verticals that are the best for pay per call right now, or is it kind of just a broader answer to that?
I mean, I think best is relative. So, for instance, we just gave away $100 million GOAT award for a customer of ours who made $100 million in a year running calls, and they were in Medicare, and so it's a massive industry. But they're the best at it. They're super compliant. They're really good at business development. They're really great marketers. They've been in the industry a long time. But 5 years ago, it was just a team of one, and I met them at LeadsCon, and they started from there. And so I think all verticals have opportunity. I think that the bigger ones or the more regulated ones are going to be harder, but higher volume. Though it's not uncommon to see people making millions of dollars a year in some random vertical that I'm not even paying attention to or understanding what exactly is going on. And I mean, I see people selling engines on pay per call. I see people doing fire damage restoration, which doesn't sound like a big market, but it is. It's massive. Yeah. Motor vehicle accidents and all sorts of tort and legal calls, and obviously home services. Everything you can think of related to the house is a pay per call campaign, and pest removal is massive, and wildlife control, and all the insurances, final expense, life insurance, health insurance, ACA, U65, Medicare. Each one of these verticals is billions of dollars. And so it's really about, like I said, finding that niche which you understand and then figuring out to go where everyone else is not. And those are the best opportunities.
Do you think when you're getting started in whatever vertical you choose that you're passionate about, what do you think are the most common pitfalls that people run into when starting off?
I think people expect to just start and win right away.
Yeah.
I think that's the affiliate mindset. They're always looking for the next campaign and the easiest way to figure out how to get some revenue, right? And I think in pay per call, there's more to it than that. You have to think more like a long-term business owner. There's more technology involved. I mean, us, for instance, Everflow and Ringba work together because a lot of your clients do calls and the technology integrations are required. That requires support between two companies. And we do our best, right? But it still requires work. And most affiliates are not used to that. Also, the most successful companies that use our software are the ones that learn it the best and implement different layers of monetization into it. It's not as simple as I'm going to put up an ad on Google, someone's going to call, and I get paid. Like, I think that's the biggest misconception that people don't realize. You know, that the first 100 calls that come in, if I'm starting, I'm listening to all of them from start to finish. I'm going to understand what consumers stayed on the phone longer. What were they interested in? How do I get rid of the consumers that don't qualify? And the only way to do that is to really listen and then change what I'm doing. In fact, the guy who got the $100 million GOAT award, many years ago, we did a podcast, and it was about listening to phone calls and quality assurance. And it was kind of boring, honestly, but he just meticulously listened to thousands of phone calls, had a team of people listen to the calls, and they got so good at understanding what the consumer's needs were that now they've built a massive business, right?
Mhm.
And so I think affiliates getting into pay per call don't realize it's going to be more work, and they're going to have to learn a lot more. They're going to have to understand technology, what the consumers are talking about, how their partners work, and they really have to dive in deeper. And then also, most affiliates, if we're just talking about affiliates, they're used to going to a network, getting a link, running traffic to the link, and not really paying for anything except maybe hosting their landing page and clicks, right?
Yeah.
But with calls, you're going to have a phone bill. Like, you need the technology, because if your call center is not available to take the calls, you need another one that's available to take the calls. And then you need technology to automatically route and optimize that for you. And it costs money. In fact, Ringba is the most expensive game in town, not the cheapest. Like, we don't look at price. We look at how do we invest the money to get our clients the biggest outcome. So we're like in the premium category, and that's why we build predictive technology, because most of our clients that use it, they don't care about the bill, because it's, well, I spend this money here and I make 3 times as much profit. But most affiliates are not used to that. And so some shy away from it. But there's really no way around it. Like, you have to have the technology and calls, or you just, whether it's ours or not, you just simply will not be able to compete in the marketplace.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what we said earlier. If it's that human nature now is instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not getting that, or realizing that it's not going to be that, there's going to be the fallout. Would you say, or do you happen to know, it's okay if you don't, the percentage of people that kind of just give up after starting to try pay per call because of that?
That one's really tough for me. I mean, we have thousands and thousands of customers. I think that a lot of affiliates that come over do fail. There's no doubt about that. I don't know if it's because they can't succeed, though. I think it goes back to, like, the path of least resistance. A lot of affiliates have tried calls and they didn't understand things and then failed, and then don't go back. And I think, really interesting you asked this question. So I know this affiliate. He's been in the industry a really long time, very well known, but we had never met in person. And I saw on Instagram he was in Miami. And so I sent him a message and I said, "Hey, you're down the street from me. Come over right now. And, like, let's just meet and hang out, because you've been in the industry for 20 years. So have I. Like, the fact that we've never met is silly." And so he did. He came over and he told me, "I tried to run calls, but I failed." And I said, "Walk me through what you were doing." And so he was not using his own routing technology. He never listened to a single phone call. He didn't understand the different media options that were available. And so we spent maybe an hour and a half talking about this, just like you and I have. Like, no details really. Like, hey, you just need to do these things. Trust me. And he's like, "Man, that's just not normal for me. I don't know. Like, I just don't know." And I said, "I tell you what, I'll give you $1,000, right?" And I dropped $1,000 into a Ringba account and I gave it to him. And I said, "Go, prove me wrong. Like, you've been doing this for 20 years. Use the technology and tell me you can't make it work on $1,000 of my money." And so he's a great customer now, runs a lot of calls. Like, he's doing very well.
He didn't prove you wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And so, I think changing that mindset's really important for the affiliate crowd. And the cool thing about it is, once you change that mindset, now you have a real business. And I don't know how many affiliates that are selling their companies, but in pay-per-call, it's pretty normal. Like, my friend Anthony sold his company for $50 million in cash. They were just affiliate media buyers. Harrison, my business partner, his good friend Jake sold his company. They were very heavy in pay-per-call, and it was one of the reasons the buyer wanted it. And so once you figure it out, like, you're actually building something that's sustainable and has value, and that's a really cool thing. That's my favorite thing about what we do, is like helping people that do what I did when I was a kid, like, learn how to build a business and create something of long-term value for themselves.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And would you say that that reason alone, with along with like the changing of the mind of your mindset, is what makes pay per call different than any other lead generation strategies?
Yeah. It's just like it you can't, like, it's a human on the phone. And so you know what happens on the phone immediately. It's not like you can resell a phone call to, 6 different people at the same time. It doesn't work like that. Um, there's no, like, aged phone calls or bad data. Like, you catch compliance issues immediately. Um, and so everyone involved has to really think, like, how do I give the consumer the best experience, and how do I make sure my partners are winning? And when you adopt that mindset, and you can build a really great business. And it really is that simple. Um, and we're seeing more and more and more and more companies in our space do calls. If you look at Affiliate Summit East, which is coming up here, and you look at every single booth, which we did, the percentage of people that are exhibiting there that are involved in pay-per-call has more than tripled in the last few years. It's the majority of companies there are doing something in calls. Um, and I recently held a mastermind event in Las Vegas. I had 25 CEOs there, and I invited the head of a Fortune 500 company that we have a partnership with. And he gave a presentation. And the short version is, they're no longer doing leads, and they're only buying inbound calls.
Hmm.
And it was pretty shocking for everyone in the room, but they were like, inbound calls are just easier. Someone calls, they want to talk to you, they're like happy. They're like, "Oh, hey, you can help me." And so the conversion rates are extremely high, 20, 30, 40, 50%, not 1, 2. Um, and the people that work for the company taking the calls don't burn out. Like, calling 400 people a day that hang up on you and swear at you and tell you not to call back and that they're sick of you calling, it's like not a fun experience for the consumer or the people who work at the company. Whereas an inbound call is someone who, like, wants your help, and you get to almost be like a counselor as opposed to a salesperson. And so it reduces the employee turnover for the buyer. Employee satisfaction in the call centers go up. They don't get bad reviews on the internet. That's like, people keep calling me from this company, they won't take me off the list. Like, everything about it is more wholesome and better. Um, and everybody wins. And so that to me is a really exciting thing.
Yeah, that's incredible. And as you said, you've been in the industry for a long time. So I'm sure you get questions over and over about how it works. What do you do specifically? And I know you recently wrote a book.
I did.
Is that, or the millions of questions you got on a day-to-day basis, what drove you to write this book? Or was it something that you were kind of always passionate about doing and getting out there to people like you who were back in the day needing that information?
Yeah, the book's an interesting thing. So we will make $0 selling books. We will lose hundreds of thousands on the books. Um, the reason we decided to do the book is because Harrison and I have been in the industry a really long time, and I wrote the book, but he was super supportive throughout that process. Was really grateful for his support as a business partner. And he's been in the industry since he's 13, right? He's like 32 now. So same for me, like not quite as young, but our entire professional careers. And when I got started, the industry like saved my life. I had to move back into my parents' basement. I had gotten a DUI. I had no money. It was just like a mess. Like, my life was a mess. And I was going door to door in downtown Detroit selling phone service in the snow. making no money. Yeah, it's like
Not ideal.
dumpster fire life, like just hell. And I went home at night and tried to make money on the internet, and I discovered affiliate marketing, and it literally saved my life. It's just like in a few months, I had figured out how to do it. I was able to pay off my debts, and it just like really changed my life. And then as I was an affiliate, it's just like over and over again, campaigns go away, they die for whatever reason. Like back in the day, I used to run Match.com and eHarmony and SinglesNet and tons of dating campaigns and sweepstakes and all sorts of stuff. None of these campaigns exist anymore. They're all gone for whatever reason. And every time that happened, I had to rebuild my business. I had to like start from scratch. Everything I learned and invested, I had to do over again. And so once we built Ringba and we understood the opportunity and everything we were doing was like proven, we just said like we want to give back in the same way that the industry helped save my life. And so I committed to writing the book. The book does teach people from start to finish how to do this industry. There's a lot of really interesting information in there, things that people wouldn't really understand. A lot of opportunities, like the questions you're asking me about, are talked about in the book. And it's not a Chat GPT book. It took me 15 months. And I have an entire editorial team that specializes in educational content that helped me do it. It was very expensive to produce. And we already have people who have read the book and started businesses or switched from lead gen to pay per call and are already finding success. And so that to me is ultimately the reason why I want to give back to our space and help people find opportunities that can change their lives. And so that's why I wrote it. It was a brutal process. I don't recommend anybody write a book. Again, there's no money in books and your head will explode.
Well, that's fantastic. You have a
Yeah.
wonderful story and it's landed you in a fantastic place. So to do that, to pay it forward is a really unique opportunity, and you don't hear that often. So, and I will close this out on that high note. And unless you have anything else, like, is there anything specific that's just been on your mind that you want people to know?
Nothing specific, but if anyone listening goes to papercallrevolution.com, that's the name of the book, and picks up the $10 in shipping, we'll send you a copy for free.
That's awesome. Well, thank you all for joining. And, as Adam mentioned, we do have an integration with Ringba. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, you can reach out to either one of us. We're happy to help and look forward to talking to you sometime soon, Adam, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.